Now let's work this ABC analysis problem. Okay, we are given these 8 items, and typically company will have thousands of items, if not say tens of thousands of items. But here is a class problem which is only 8 items, and we have the annual consumption, our annual demand for each item, and the unit value. So the unit value is the cost per unit, so dollar per unit. So that's given. So the first step is to find the annual dollar usage. So the annual dollar usage is annual demand multiplied by dollars per unit. So here if you multiply like that, then you get the annual dollar usage. So times 96.90. So this is 1500. This is 60.75. Then I get 30.35. This is 1604. This is 1603 and 2005. So this is the first step, to find the annual dollar usage. Next we have to sort this list from the largest value to the smallest value. So let's do that here in the second table. So the first item, the largest value is 96.90, so that is D205 is 96.90. Then the next largest is 60.75, so that is U404 is 60.75. Next 3 is 32.20, so that is A104 32.20. Then the next item is that one, L205 is 30.35. And then the next is that one, L104 is 2005. And then we have S104, which is 1604. S104, 1604. And then the next one is X205, so that is 1603. And then finally we have X104, and that is 1500. So then we sum, that gives us the total 28,732. That is the total annual dollar volume. So now we need to apply the thumb rule to figure out which of the top items must be A and which of the bottom items must be C and the in-between ones B. And let me write the thumb rule here, and remember this is only a thumb rule, okay, this is not hard and fast. So A, B, C thumb rule. Okay. Now A is approximately 15% of items and 70 to 80% of dollar volume. Okay. Now, class B is everything in between. Now, class C is again approximately 50% of items and 5 to 10% of dollar volume. So the difficulty is that oftentimes 15% of the items will not directly coincide with 70 to 80% of the dollar volume. There may be some discrepancy. Like 15% of the items may constitute only 50% of dollar volume. Okay. Or at the bottom, maybe 50% of the items will constitute 20% of dollar volume. So when there is a discrepancy in applying the thumb rule, since it's only a thumb rule, so we have to be flexible. We should not try to force fit, and even if we try to force fit, we may not be able to force fit the thumb rule into the particular data that we have. So in order for us to try to reconcile this rule with this, you have to come up with the percentage of dollar usage and the cumulative percentage of dollar and cumulative percentage of number of items. So these three columns will help us figure out what the class of the item must be. So now let's compute this column, percentage of dollar usage. So how do we compute percentage of dollar usage? Well, we take each dollar value, so 96.90, and divide by the total dollar volume, which is 28,732, and then you multiply by 100 to convert it into a percentage. So that will be 33.7%. So they do the same thing here. 6075 divided by the total dollar volume, 28,732 times 100 will give you 21.1%. Now repeat that for the rest of them. So you get 11.2%, 10.6%, 7%, 5.6%, 5.6%, and 5.2%. So of course when you sum all of this, you're going to have 100%. Now we'll do a cumulative percentage here. So we start with 33.7%. You add that 21.1 to that, you get 54.8%. Then add that, you get 66%. Then 76.6%, 83.6%, 89.2%, 94.8%, and of course the last one must be 100%. Now let's do the cumulative number of items. So you can do cumulative number of items by dividing by taking the item number in this list and dividing by the total number of items. So you get 1 over 8, and of course you want to express that as a percentage, so that will be 12.5%. And then 2 over 8 will give you 25%, and you do the same thing, so you get 37.5%. So this is 50%, 62.5%, 75%, 87.5%, and 100%. So now our task is to look at class A rule and try to fit it in here. So approximately 15% of the items, so that will be about, the first one is 12.5, the second one is 25. Then we need 70 to 80% of value. So you see that it doesn't fit. So you have to try to come up. So first item is A, obviously. Now how do you try to resolve this discrepancy? Well, one way to look at it is to look at the annual dollar usage and see, okay, so now the question is whether we stop here or proceed further down as A. Now, is this dollar value, annual dollar usage, is that more closer to the previous A or the one that comes below it? Okay. So, well, it's kind of in between. So, well, we'll do A here. And of course, this could be, some people may consider it as B. The reason why this is a kind of a really difficult to reconcile is because it's really a small problem. In a larger problem, it will not be that much of a problem. So let's now do C. So bottom 50% of the items constituting about 5 to 10% of value. So that's 50% of the items, and we have about 17 or even 25% of value here. So up to here it is 76, the remaining is about 23.4%. So the value seems kind of high, but once again now you can see whether this should be C or it should go with B. So it looks like the difference is only $400 between these two items, whereas between these two it's more like $1,000. So this item is more like C than like a B, so we'll make that into a C. So here it is pretty clear that transition from B to C, but in this case it's kind of in between. Well, actually, if you look at it, if you make that into a B, then these two are more closer than that. So one could argue that this is what A must, this item must be A. But once again, you see that it is not a straightforward plugging values into your formula and seeing whether it is A, B, or C. So you have some judgment involved here, and you have to use your judgment to figure this one out. So try to do the best you can. In other words, there can be more than one answer, but you should be able to, if you have a different answer, you should be able to justify that different answer. If you're not able to justify the answer, then that means that's not right.